A tariff war is amongst us. Here are all the details. We're going to go over that today. We're also going to go over a bit of an airdrop opportunity and some Solana news in general. Let's dive in. So one thing to keep in mind, I've already covered this in a very, very short video, but this is a great time to buy. It's probably a good idea at this time to follow Donald J. Trump on the Truth Social. I haven't signed up yet, but these sort of indicators, they're literal buy signals. He puts this out and everything starts to pump. So you want to follow him with notifications on because the rules are not applying to him. Now, you may have heard that there's a 90-day pause on tariffs. This is not a complete pause across the board. It's still kind of confusing, but basically China is still facing a 125% tariff on most goods, and Canada and Mexico have a tariff going on. There's still other tariffs out there, but when those reciprocal tariffs, like for the EU, that was 30% or whatever it was, India was like 40-something%. All those, they've been kind of pushed to 10%. So there's still a tariff happening right now. There's still revenue coming in for the federal government, but it's 10%. This will still, it's going to hurt US companies significantly, and it's going to be a bit of pain, and then they will kind of readjust, but there will be a lot of bankruptcies happening, I think. When this news came through, a whole lot of money was added into the stock market, but we maybe have 90 days of leeway. However, they can always change things in that 90-day period. They can potentially make things harder, try and reduce the rates, and then go from there. S&P 500 is now as volatile as Bitcoin, at least in the short term, just due to the fact that the markets have been essentially manipulated. And we do have some good news with the new SEC chair, Gary Gensler's out, and pro-Bitcoin Paul Atkins is officially confirmed. This is a good thing that's been overturned by the current administration. And this was basically the IRS trying to get into DeFi protocols and just weasel their way in there. So this has been overturned, is my understanding. On the subject of tariffs, China is willing to negotiate tariffs, but will fight to the end. And China's in a massive state of dominance because they have the significant amount of all the manufacturing done in their country. But there's a lot of stuff that we probably don't really need, to be perfectly honest. There's a lot of stuff that we certainly do, like semiconductors and phones and stuff. But your orders from Temu and half stuff you get on Amazon, if we don't see that again, it's probably not going to be the end of the world. And with all of this bearish news, the Chinese yuan has fallen to its lowest level in 18 years. So compared to the US dollar, it's fallen significantly. Now, Canada's also agreeing to negotiate new trade deals with the United States, and all this stuff is going to probably come onto your feed. It's going to look like it's very, very bullish. It's hard to really say if it's going to be bullish. It all really depends on what we'll cover in a second, how much liquidity is in the market and what the rates are. That's my kind of core belief. These tariffs, they're bearish in the short term for sure. The European Union pauses tariffs on US goods for 90 days, agrees to negotiate new trade deal. So there are people coming to the table, and I think none of this would have happened without going heavy-handed. It would have been nice if we had known that it was going to go so heavy-handed. We weren't expecting it, and so our assets depreciated and wouldn't put on any hedges. What the EU is trying to do is they're trying to make a completely balanced trade deal with the United States. This is not going to be possible because the United States, they gave up so much of their manufacturing in the 80s and 90s, and anything they're kind of exporting, you can get something better from another country for the most part. So really the major export is the US dollar and buying stocks. It makes it very, very hard. But at least they're trying to make this a more even thing. The next thing to talk about is CPI inflation is falling below 3%. It's dropped to 2.4, lower than the expectations of 2.5%. And this is a very, very good thing, but it's a rubbish metric in my opinion. It includes like food, but like the most kind of poorest food, like hot dogs and milk and stuff like that, bread. It includes gas, like diesel and fuel, and it includes electricity and other core things, but doesn't factor in like the cost of housing or the cost of just the things that you really, really want, the cost of a better education. All these things, they continue to increase. So CPI is one of those silly statistics that they put out and they use as a metric, but it's kind of rubbish. Things are still going to get far more expensive than 2.4%. You can definitely bet your dollar on that. One thing this does mean, though, is if inflation goes very, very high, you want to increase the rates. The Federal Reserve will increase the rates in order to counteract that. High rates means that your mortgage goes up, it gets more expensive, people spend less, and then there should be less inflation. So when it does drop, this does signal that you can cut rates. So this is something that needs to happen for the end of this cycle. However, the likelihood of a rate cut is, and this is going to be for the next FOMC meeting, which is in 26 days, there's no change. It's 61%. It's still going to be in the same point. Now, 26 days is still enough time to wreak some havoc and to kind of screw this the other way. So hopefully this is what we see, because starting to move the rates down would be a good thing for us. Now, the actual global M2 money supply is something that we do want to look at. And this is a lead on it. And this lead shows that it's increasing. And with this increasing, then we can start to see that Bitcoin should follow this. There's been a lot of variables thrown out. Raoul Pal talks about this from Real Vision all the time. This is kind of his metric that he uses, and he does see this lead. And if you follow this lead, then it looks pretty good. Now you can see it all changes around May 7, which is around the next FOMC meeting. So potentially, I'm not sure how this is all really worked out, but potentially that will be a bit of a turning point. So April, a bit of a write-off, and then May, hopefully it could be okay. When we compare this to the price of Sol, we are also hopeful that we start to move on up again. And I think just anywhere over 200, we will be pretty happy. Bitcoin, however, has put in a lower low, which is not a bullish thing to see. And so hopefully we've got a higher low in May, and that's another thing that's going to push us up. The token that has been kind of getting the attention, and it's probably going to be the best meme coin this cycle, and you probably missed your entry like I did when it was undervalued, is Farcoin. It's funny. It was a kind of fairly fair launch. It's done a massive run up, and it can potentially come up back up to those levels. And it's doing very well. It's doing well versus BTC. It's doing well versus US dollars as well. Ethereum versus Bitcoin is not doing well. It's still like all those people calling for ETH to go to 10K. How is it the major question we have to ask ourselves? And Sol Bitcoin, it was doing well for quite some time and has started to move down, but it doesn't have the same chart that Ethereum has. There is a token that's starting to do pretty well in the Solana ecosystem, and I don't hold any, but it's called Layer. This is Solflare, like a restaking layer. I never talked about it, but it's starting to move up higher. I do wonder, and compared to Bitcoin as well, I am curious to know though, like, is this good market making, or is this something where people are starting to accumulate this? So something for you to research if you're keen, because very few things are actually starting to outperform BTC. Also, Farcoin is the #2 most popular meme coin on Solana. It can certainly flip Trump. Trump is a token that's I don't think is worth holding. And Bonk, I love Bonk, of course, and I think it will have its day again. But Farcoin is funny, and people think that it is funny. Buying at these prices right now, I'm not doing it. I don't really have that liquidity. And then it's also doing very well in terms of meme coins. It is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, the 5th strongest meme coin in the entirety of crypto. If we have a look at Sol Meteor, we can see the volume was very high, a decent amount of liquidity. You could probably earn some pretty sizable fees off this in a bid ask if it does continue to go high, and the volume is nice and decent here. Bonk Guy, who's I still think is very worthwhile to follow. He's got a long on Farcoin. It's been open for quite some time, and it's doing very nicely. He got in a good price. He shared everything with everybody. It's up like 3.2 million. He still has his Bonk long open as well, and he thinks it'll go higher. Now, there's another trend that's kind of happening, and I haven't even heard of this. Janova, I'm not looking into it or anything like that, but they are starting to buy some Sol. And what's happening with their stock price is it's up like 900% or almost 900% over the past 6 months. So as more companies start to buy an asset like Sol, that will be helpful until the Sol ETF comes out. You may want to buy those stocks, or maybe your parents do, or someone that's like that. Now, quickly into DeFi Dungeons. Still enjoying DeFi Dungeons a lot. I want more features to come out, of course. I think we all do. It is a very quiet time in the markets. I think it's a fun game to play. If you are going to play, sign up with my referral, Seb Monty, and you can actually buy things within the game. But I'm enjoying that. And there's one person who's been the first person to be exalted, meaning that their NFT can do whatever it likes and it cannot die, which is well done to them. Now, just a little reminder with DupeSync. So dupesync.link is the domain name you have to remember. This is a calendar I started initially last year, and then I've handed off to a couple of people that are like really active and keen on making it work in the Jupiterverse. And you can come here and you can add to your calendar. But there's just so much stuff happening over in Jupiter. And I understand that the price of Jupe is not what we want it to be. And I'm also going to, I'm going to be talking about anything, because at the end of the day, I want Solana to do well. I want people to stake their soul with Validator.com, and I want the ecosystem itself to grow and grow. So I'm going to also talk about Camino Swap, which you can try. Jupe is still king in this field, and Jupe itself, just TLDR, there's so much stuff going on. Look at the calendar, add it to your own personal calendar, so you can get amongst things that you're keen to do. Now, one thing is, if you did a Good Cat wallet submission, and if you go and check it, and then you have to actually add a wallet, because the cutoff date is happening very, very soon, Sunday the 13th of April, and so there'll be little reminders there. There's all sorts of stuff. There's a Luma calendar. It's doing really, really well. And Jupiter has shouted it out. So this is something that's really, really helpful for the ecosystem. Now, I am a Solflare person, and I think Jupiter Mobile is very good, but I'm on my computer most of the time, and I do play with NFTs, so it's more important to me to have that. But well done to Jupiter Mobile. They've now integrated the portfolio feature, which is why they acquired Sonar.watch. And this is very, very helpful to see like the actual value of your whole wallet, because you've got positions in all sorts of stuff. So this is an example of someone that didn't even realize they had 16 grand in here. I don't know where they are. They could be in Camino or Drift or Flash or whatever the case could be, or just who knows. So that's a pretty cool feature that they have. You're welcome to try that out. Also, as a reminder, go and claim your ASR votes. I'm just going to remind you once a week or so. The cutoff point, it'll be in the calendar. I can't remember when it is, but you've got a few weeks to claim your active staking rewards. There's no LFG launch that's happened, so it's just pure Jupe. Humor Finance is something that was put onto my radar months and months ago, and then it was featured at Cat Symbol, and I haven't had time to do a tutorial, but I want to. Let's just assume that this takes me a few days to get out a tutorial. At the very least, try it out now. Real yield, they've got like an airdrop program. It's a decent thing. If you've got stables, put them in there, learn how it works. If you want to wait a few days until I put out a tutorial, that's fine as well. But I think this is worthwhile. Finally, let's have a quick look over here at the Sol and USD on the 2-hour chart using Katoshi's settings. We've picked up ever so slightly green, but we came up and then we've come on down and then we've come on up again. It is certainly not a time, in my opinion, to be playing with a long. It's a little bit too risky. And with Bitcoin, it's the same thing. We've briefly gone green on the 2-hour, but when we flick it over to the 1 day, we can still see that things are pretty brutal, and like it's still in downtrend. So we're waiting on what's going to happen over the next few weeks, and in particular May 7. If it looks like we're going to get a rate cut, then things will start to get more bullish, and that's what I'm hoping is going to happen. I hope that there's going to be some havoc, which I know is going to hurt a lot of companies in the US, a lot of companies around the world, but a rate cut is essentially what is needed for the markets. That's everything. Make sure you stake your soul with Validator.com, and also subscribe and check out these 2 videos over here. Thanks for watching.